پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، کفن بھی تو نے نہ پایا، کفن بھی تو نے نہ پایا میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، تمہیں تو میں نے بڑی محنتوں سے پالا تھا، تمہیں تو دھوپ کے اندر کبھی نہ جانے دیا، اور اب یہ حال تمہارا میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، اب اٹھ کے بنتے نبی کیسے جائے لاشے سے، نکالے تیر یا پتھر ہٹائے لاشے سے، بتاؤ کیا کرے دکھیا میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، بلا رہی ہے تمہیں میری لاڈلی دیکھو، اٹھاؤں کیسے اکیلے تمہاری میت کو، یہاں سے دور ہے خیمہ میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، تمہیں نبی کا نواسا کہاں سمجھتے ہیں، تمہارے قتل پہ اب شادیاں بجتے ہیں، خوشی مناتے ہیں ادا میرے حسین میرے حسین، پکاری لاش پہ زہرا میرے حسین میرے حسین، کفن بھی تو نے نہ پایا، کفن بھی تو نے نہ پایا میرے حسین میرے حسین،
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. It has been 10 days since the day of Ashura, and once again I have the honor of addressing my beloved community out in Edmonton. And as I will always say, I would much rather be there in person with all of you, meeting you all and catching up with you all and having a great cup of tea with you all. But this, of course, is the new norm nowadays. And inshallah, throughout the Ayam Azah, throughout the days of Muharram and Safar, I will be addressing you in various dates as a standalone majlis or lecture. And so each of those lectures will have its own individual topic. And tonight I thought that I would look at the concept of change just a little bit. It's a massive topic and one that I've been speaking about since the day of Ashura. It's one that I often talk about in previous years. And of course, there's a reason for that. After the first 12 nights of the month of Muharram, we're on a spiritual high in those first 12 nights. Right? We're emotionally driven. We want to hear what the alim has to say, and hearts are softened, and the minds are ready to be challenged. And there actually is sometimes change. I get amazing messages from all over the world about people who have taken the 12 days of any lecture, any alim, any speaker, and have converted into a different worldview when it comes to their life and the life of their family. And I find that to be amazing. The problem that I think is happening, maybe I'm wrong, is the fact that that's not happening enough. If I was to explain to a non-Muslim, a non-Shia, who had no clue what Azadari was, explain to them what the process is, explain to them what we do, break down the schedule of a majlis, tell them about the fact that, we gather 2 months, at least all of Muharram and all of Safar, majority of the dates, if not at least for the first 12 nights of the month of Muharram. And we gather in big numbers, and our masajid, our Hussainiyas, our centers are full. And, we, of course, we lament and we recite poetry and hear poetry, and we recall the events of that actual battle on the day of Ashura. But more importantly, the scholar and as somebody who's trained in the sciences of Islam comes and addresses the community on a wide array of topics, everything from history to morality to belief to the distinction of the Ahlul Bayt to patience and to raising beautiful kids and having a successful marriage, etc., etc. And this person would say that you do this every single year. So yeah, we do it not only every single year, we do it all throughout the year. Think about all the wiladats and shahadats that we have throughout the year. Easily 100, 150 programs, more than half of the year, if not at least half the year, in this entire program. A little bit of poetry, a little bit of emotion, and a little bit of thought-provoking discussion. I think that person would sit there and be wowed, number one, and number two, would honestly, assume that the Shia nation would be a morally sound, ethically based, principle-centered nation, where their families are strong and their marriages are strong and their kids are on the path and the centers are strong and there's no division, not at all. I mean, the treasures that we have as the Shias of Ali Muhammad, no one else has. And yet the reality is that we're not like what that person might assume we would be. And yet we have all these treasures, all these hours and hours and hours of majalis. And if the alim is doing his part or her part, or if the alima is doing her part, then, there should be a faster, longer lasting change inside of our homes. And the reality is that our divorce rates are up, our kids are on the brink of atheism, our centers are fragmented, right? We have walls up, cultural walls, language walls, color walls, gender walls. All these walls are up. And the very Deen that Imam Hussain sacrificed for, the very Imam Hussain that we cry for the first 12 nights, made a huge sacrifice. A very drastic one, if I can use that word, all to protect the very principles that you and I are letting slip through our fingers today. So something has to give, guys. Something's not right. And so I thought that, we could talk about change tonight. It's been 10 days since the day of Ashura, and I want you to take yourself back to those first 10 nights, wherever you listened to, if you had your own respective lectures there in Edmonton, or if you heard someone else online. And I want you to think about the thoughts you had, the feelings you had, how you felt after the Ashra, during the Ashra, 7th of Muharram, 9th of Muharram, the night of Ashura, the night, And while I'm not naive to think that we can ever recreate that the day of Ashura is the day of Ashura, it is important that 10 days now out so we can stop and kind of consider ourselves to be lucky to have the opportunity to still commemorate Imam Hussain and Bibi Zainab's mission. Those who believe that the entire mission of Azadari and Imam Hussain stopped on the day of Ashura don't understand the value of the daughter of Ali, Bibi Zainab salamullah alayha. But regardless, let's examine a little bit tonight on why is it so difficult to change. And I'm not going to insult my audience. I know that, mashallah, the Edmonton audience out there, and I'll tell you, my my first time that I saw you guys was last year, as you guys know, and I mean, I've been in Canada for many, many years, and obviously my whole life, and I've never had a chance to go out to Western Canada, visit the Calgary community, Edmonton community. But last year, alhamdulillah, in my Western Canada tour, if I can use that word, from Winnipeg to Vancouver to Edmonton to Calgary, I realized that there were some beautiful communities, amazing people out in Western Canada that I was deprived of, here in Southern Ontario. And so I know that there's a lot of work being done out there in Edmonton especially, and amazing people doing incredible work, raising beautiful, pious children, a strong family unit. And so I'm not going to, insult your intelligence by saying that, you should change. Everyone should change. We all know that. If I was to survey 90% of you, if I was to survey every single one of you who are listening right now, I would think that 95% of you would sit there and say, yeah, Sayyid, we're not happy with where we're at. We want to be better. How many messages, oh my God, since the 1st of Muharram that I've received on my phone blowing up, and the synopsis and the summary is that help us get better. How can we get better? How can I raise my kids to be better kids? How can I strengthen my marriage? And so that all proves to me that we know what we have to do. We just can't pull that trigger. Or we start off strong and then we don't sustain that change. So it's a massive topic, and one that of course requires 10 nights to discuss. It's an Ashura really topic, and I sometimes hesitate in bringing up such massive topics for a one stand-alone lecture, but regardless, I think that it's important that we at least scratch the surface tonight and get the ball rolling. And I'm going to get the ball rolling by looking at the fact that sometimes I think the barrier of change comes from us. What I mean by that is I think that we have this incorrect view of what Islam wants from us, and of course, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. We have to understand that Allah is a very reasonable creator, and He's a realistic one. Does not hold grudges, doesn't get caught up in emotions, doesn't forget, of course, and, is our number one fan, wants to see us succeed. Does everything in his power to make sure the human being succeeds. He didn't have to send prophets and imams and the ulama and the Quran and our own conscious and beautiful parents and amazing spouses, and didn't have to do any of that. But He did that so we can succeed. At the same time, He's also very realistic when it comes to us. He knows our limits. He knows what we can and can't do. And he'll ask me, Sayyid Asad, how can you say that? Let's go all the way back to the angels, right? Inni ja'alun fil ardin khalifa. Allah says to the angels, I want to create a khalifa, a vicegerent on this earth. And the angels now have this confusion that this human, this earth, is a place of fasad and corruption. It's a place of bloodshed and khun rizi. If you want hamd, if you want tasbih, if you want someone to glorify you and someone to praise you, we're here. We'll do it. And well, I don't want to go down this route too much, but it's important to establish how God sees us. Because then I want us to be reminded of how God sees us. God's response to the angels is a very interesting one. He does not acknowledge the complaint or the confusion of the angels. He doesn't. Alama Tabatabai Tafsir al-Mizan, and when it comes to these verses in the late 20s, early 30s of Surah Baqarah, in this conversation about the creation of Adam, he says that God gave the angels a quiet response. Meaning, if somebody came to you as a president, let's say if someone came to Zuhair Bhai as the president of the Jamaat and said, look, Zuhair Bhai, these are my complaints, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he says, okay, I know about this Jamaat that what you don't know. And walks away. Right? Essentially, that's what Allah says, right? Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. I know what you don't know. You'll say, look, that's fine. You've been serving the community for so many years, mashallah, right? You're a senior member of the Jamaat, no doubt. But address my concerns. Right? Walking away saying, look, I know you don't know. It's not a response to the complaints. Allah didn't respond to the confusion of the angels. And tafsir has a expanded discussion on why that is. Part of that is because God knew that what the angels were confused about was absolutely legitimate. Yes, the human being is absolutely capable of bloodshed, of corruption, of fitna, fasad, of injustice, of tyranny, of aggression. We're seeing it today in every corner of the globe. People are screaming for justice. At the same time, now, his quiet response to the angels was the fact that, look, I know, you're right. But there's a side of the human being that you're not aware of. Right? It's like someone coming to Zuhair Bhai complaining and say, look, there are details about this Jamaat. Zuhair Bhai would respond to saying, there are details about this Jamaat that you don't know. Right? Be it the zoning of the law, or how the committee works, or I don't know, right? Whatever the case may be, right? The history of the building, right? There are things that you don't know. Yes, you're right. These are problems that exist. I absolutely agree. I'm not denying that. Otherwise, God said, no, what are you talking about? Not my human being. My human would never cause corruption. My human would never shed blood. My human would never do injustice and tyranny. It's not what he said. He said, yeah, I know what you don't know. Basically a quiet response. Okay? Which tells me that he knows us very, very, very well. He knows our capacity. He knows our weakness. He knows our deficiencies. He knows what we are capable of doing. Didn't sit there and blow up at the angels, say, how dare you talk about my human being like that? No, right? Like some parents in our communities, right? When someone has the gall and the courage to say, look, your kid is a little bit loud in the majlis. How dare you, my child? He's a farishta. He's an angel. No. Every other child is the devil's child. My child, no. Masoom bacha, Mazloom farishta. No. And you're looking at her like you're a naive mother. I'm sorry, sister. It's not what God said. God goes, yeah. Now, why do I mention this? Because he also knows that change for us is hard. And what he's asking for in this deen is also not easy. I'm going to lay it out. You guys know I'm a straight shooter. I'm not going to sit there and say, no. The Holy Prophet says there are 3 levels of patience. And I'm going somewhere tonight, and please follow me. I'll go slow, even though I only have one lecture. He says there are 3 levels of patience. The first level of sabr and patience is when it comes to Marsiya, against hardships. Makes sense? The other one is against shaitan. When shaitan comes and whispers in your ear to my youth to do something haram, to fight him off, takes patience. The third one is interesting. The third one, he says, the Prophet says, there's patience in the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the realism of God. Asking us to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning to pray Fajr from our warm bed. Right? And then splash water on our face to do wudu, and then pray Fajr, and then try to go back to bed and wake up. Think about your schedule in the month of Ramadan. By the time you get home from the center, by the time you wake up for suhoor, by the time you get back to bed, then wake back up for school and for work. I mean, it's little sections and portions of sleep. It's not one big chunk. It's not easy, right? 18 hours of a fast, 16 hours of a fast. It's not easy. It's not easy. Going to Hajj is not easy. God knows that. You need patience for that. And that's why the hadith says the act that is the most difficult for you to perform has the highest reward. Okay. The reason why I say that is because I don't want anyone, including myself, especially myself, to fall into the trap of shaitan, where shaitan now comes in and infiltrates the image of God inside of us. Makes us feel like he's a God that will never be pleased with us. He's a God that will never forgive me. He's a God that is a God of wrath, a God of punishment, not a God of mercy or a God of love. Right? He's not a God that will let me heal. He likes to see me punish. He likes to see me punished, yes. Right? And in the process now, what ends up happening is we give up on God. Right? Now, when it comes to change, that newly infiltrated image of God by shaitan will also have a play. Part of the reason why change is so hard for us is because we think that God wants an all or nothing approach. Either you do everything or don't even attempt it. And God's like, no, I'm sorry. For God, it's all about the process. It's not about the results. I have said that so many times in different centers, different members, different lectures. It's not about the results always. It's about the process. The problem is that we live in a result-driven society. Everything is about results. Everything is about your test scores. Everything is about your degree and those letters after your name, for example, on your resume. Okay, whereas God says, look, because there is no actual result to achieve in this world, meaning what? You can never say, yeah, okay, I am exactly where I want to be as God's servant. I'm good now. I can coast. It's never the case, maybe, until our dying breath now. We try to be better for Allah, which means Allah what? Allah now rewards the process. Think about it for a moment, right? You break Allah's commands without properly forgiving, there'll be accountability. But when you follow Allah's commands, He rewards you. No other system is like that. It's not like, if you run through a red light in Edmonton, you bolt through a red light, you get a you get a ticket. But then if you sit there and you tell the officer, wait a second, officer, this is my first red light I've ever gone through. I've been driving for 10 years. I have stopped at thousands of red lights. I want you to reward me for those stopping. He's like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to. I will only punish you for breaking the law. I won't reward you for upholding the law. But in God's kingdom, He rewards you for doing what you're supposed to do. Think about salat, think about fasting, think about khums, hajj. Those things are wajib. You're supposed to do it. Right? Which tells me that, it's a process-driven religion. Okay? Now, the reason why I say that is because I want to break some molds tonight. I want to break a little bit of this incorrect understanding and say that, look, all of us, when it comes to change, it has to be a very slow change, monotonous change, inch by inch change. It has to be a systematic change. Okay, again, excuse me. A lot of my youth, we believe in this idea of go big or go home, right? It's got to be a bang, it's got to be boom, it's got to be everything, right? Let's just fireworks, oh my God, let's spend everything, just bam. And we apply that to the Deen. And because I can't do the bam in the Deen, I don't even attempt. And again, goes back to the idea that God is not about go big or go home. God's about very, very small steps. Imam Ali has a beautiful hadith. He says, small acts of worship, but consistent, are far more beloved in the eyes of Allah than large acts of worship that are done inconsistently. But it's a large act of worship. It's the bang. We don't care about the bang. We care about the climb, inch by inch, step by step. And that climb is your climb, not my climb. And it goes back to a discussion in the world of Islamic morality on the hearts. Okay? The catalyst of change is the heart. Remember that always, okay? Not the mind. The mind stores information. The heart, what? Converts that information into faith. Remember that always. The heart plays a critical role, right? That's why those who might have aql, they might have intellect, they might have reasoning, they don't have faith because their heart has not leapt or leaped into the faith, right? That perennial leap of faith that sometimes is required comes from the heart. And so when that's not there, it's not there. And that's why there's an extensive discussion on the heart inside of Islam. And to break it down, to sum it up quickly, the heart goes through two various stages. Iqbal and idbar. Iqbal is that it gravitates towards something, the heart. Idbar, that it retreats from something, the heart does. And when it comes to worship and spirituality, it also goes through the exact same two stages. Okay? There are moments where we want to worship Allah. There are moments where we're running towards the Musalla and the Janamaz. There are moments where we can't wait for the night of Qadr to begin. There are moments where we prepare for these nights of Amal days before. We take off work. We make sure we sleep in the daytime. We make sure the pot of coffee is on. We make sure the kids are okay, right? We set up. We have our namaz chadas. We have our iPads. We have our books. We have our whatever we need in terms of this year's Amal in the month of Ramadan. How much preparation was it to do the Amal at home? And there was this sense of eagerness to do it. Then there are moments where our heart retreats from the worship of God. What I mean by retreat is that all it has the energy to do are the bare minimum wajibat, and that's okay. I'm here to tell you that's okay. We have ahadith, and I'll share with you a couple of them, that basically tell us, do not pressure the soul too much. Don't pressure the nafs too much. Don't squeeze it so it begins to rebel against you. Okay? Understand its limitations and feed it based on its limitations. Yes, push it, but be conscious of when you push it. Because God forbid, in our attempt to elevate towards Allah, we might skip some steps, we might go too fast, we might end up doing whatever, and then ultimately the nafs now has a distaste for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's say I drive to Edmonton. Let's say, for example, that Zahir Bhai says, Sayyid Asad Bhai, why don't you come down, for a 5-night lecture series. I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to go to Edmonton and I'll go up to Banff at the same time. So I bring my family. Okay? We grab a car and we drive to Edmonton, pretty much across nation. Okay? And I'm driving all the way down. Okay? And I start to get a little bit sleepy. Okay? And my wife is saying, look, you're getting sleepy, pull over. Let's just grab some place to stay. We'll resume in the morning. No, I'm good. We gotta make good time. And you're sitting there, and your eyes are burning, and now it's black. It's really dark outside, and there are stretches, across Ontario, across Manitoba, where there's nothing there. So it's just you, and you're just like this. You're trying to stay awake. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Your kids are asleep. Your wife is asleep, and for one moment now, you just kind of you nod your head. What happens? You steer off the road, you go into a ditch. Journey is over, right? Because you pushed yourself too much. Or the other example I have for you is that you're flying down 140 or 150 all the way down, and you can hear the car's just not able to maintain that speed. I don't care. Got to get there in good time. Got to beat the record. Got to beat whatever the record it is. We're all about good time, right? As men, got to make good time. No bathroom breaks. And And you're pushing the car, and the car's telling you it's shaking, there's noises, it's revving weird, doesn't matter. What happens halfway through the journey? Car breaks down. Journey never happens. Right? We're the vehicle. We are the vehicle towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? We have to read as the driver of our own vehicle. When we are sleepy, pull over, take a rest, and continue. When we are pushing too far, slow down for a little bit, take it easy, stop over for a little bit, put some gas in, grab a coffee, and resume. There's no rush here. There are individuals who put so much pressure on themselves, and in the process they're thinking that, I'm going towards Allah, but really what's happening is that they're not in the zone. Like there are people who I get so many phone calls, Surah Yasin and Surah Mulk and Surah Rahman, all before I go to bed. I have to read these 3 surahs. It's something I've been doing for so long. It's highly recommended, but it's been a long, long day. I've been out, working. I've been running errands. I'm tired. I'm not feeling well. And so you begin Surah Mulk and you start, Tabarak alladhi. And then, halfway through, what do? You kind of just check the back to see, okay, all right, there's 3 pages, okay. Just a word of advice, if you're reading the Quran, you have to check when the surah is over, just close the book, Baba, put it aside, you're done. You're sleepy at that moment, pull over, and that's it. That's why Imam Ali says that when your nawafil acts of worship, your mustahab acts of worship, begin to affect the wajib, leave the mustahab, focus on the wajib. There'll be a moment where the heart wants more. The heart wants Rahman, Mulk, Yasin. The heart wants everything. Give it at that moment. Give it. Imam Askari alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Beautiful hadith. And tonight I want to speak about the idea that think about Allah to be a realistic God. And number 2, the Deen is a balanced, natural religion. He says that when the heart is open, confide in it. When the heart is closed, say goodbye to it. What does that mean? Think about a good friend of yours. Think about somebody that now you're trying to figure out, can I confide in this person or not? Right? And when you're able to identify that I can confide in this person, all those secrets that I've been holding for years, here you go, and you're fully, she will put it or he'll put it in the vault. There's no way it's coming out of you. I completely trust you. What do? You give them everything. You confide in them. Why? Because they're open. But if you feel like they're closed to it, that they're not going to hold your secrets, you just say goodbye. Same idea. There are moments where the heart is open. The heart's open, give them everything. Every mustahab act, every nawafil, every surah, every ziyat ashura, every dua nudba, you name it. Because there'll come a moment where the heart will close once again. When it's closed, just give it the bare minimum. And I am not, absolutely not, saying that take a break from worship or from your wajibat. I'm not saying pray Fajr every second day or pray Maghrib and Isha only on Thursdays. No, that's not what I'm saying. The bare minimum line that we can never cross are our obligations, the wajibat. I'm talking about those people that put so much pressure on themselves to do the mustahab acts that when it comes time for wajib, there's no maza, there's no huzur qalb. Right? And we think that's what God wants. God just wants you to have red, bloodshot eyes, your legs are shaking from being up, your feet are swollen. I get so many phone calls every month of Ramadan. I'm a diabetic, I shouldn't be fasting. The doctor said no, blah, blah, blah. Even I feel very, very faint and weak. I'm almost passing out, but I can't not fast. I get calls from kids, from children that say, Malana, my mother is almost passing out right now. She shouldn't be fasting. Because she has this medical condition, but she thinks it's wajib on her. And I have to remind her that in the verse of Surah Baqarah, it talks about the wujub of fasting. In that very same verse, in the verses after at least, Allah says, look, unless that He doesn't wish to put harm on you, doesn't wish to make things hard on you. He wants ease for you. Right? So we wake up an hour before the adhan of Fajr, an hour before. That's a long hour, right? And we do all the wajibat, and when it comes time for Fajr, 5 minutes before Fajr, we're sitting there, we're just bobbing our heads, we're just trying to get through, and Fajr goes by with one eye open. We have no idea if Fajr happened. I was half awake, but I was, Baba, from tomorrow morning, wake up half an hour before, 50 minutes before, but make sure your Fajr is nice and solid. right? When we approach the element of change inside of us, I want to be a better person. I know I have anger issues. I know I'm not patient. I know that I'm bad to my kids, for example. I have to be a better husband, for example. I know that. And when I approach that, I think, oh my God, it's a daunting task. It's not a daunting task, Baba. It's a small task. Just start with small things. The Prophet of Allah is advising Imam Ali. Ali, this is a firm deen. A firm deen. It's not going anywhere. It's planted. It's secure. So enter it very, very slowly, he says. Oh. Enter it very slowly. If you enter too fast, too hard, your nafs will rebel against you. Will rebel against you. Sometimes the doctor is taking your pulse, taking your blood test, checking, for example, this to that. Sometimes, it's important for the doctor to go and check its own pulse and take its own blood and make sure it's also okay. Sometimes as travelers towards God, as worshipers towards God, let's stop and ask ourselves, let's stop and do a pulse check. Am I putting too much on myself? Am I making those things that are not wajib not haram on me? Have I taken the deen to be just a very serious deen? Right? The Prophet says, Inna Allah la yuhibbul mutakallifin. Allah does not love those. Allah does not love those who are the mutakallifin, who make the deen harder than it should be. The deen is easy. Yes, there are some moments where it requires you to push yourself for the wajibat, and that's enough. But remember, look, I'll give you a very simple example, okay? My kids, okay? My kids, God bless them, I love them, of course. But when it comes to feeding them, wala hawla wala quwwata, there's no greater power than Allah when it comes to feeding them. I thought that God would give me one good eater. All three of them don't eat very well. If anybody out there would like to apply for the job that I'm offering, $1,000 a meal per kid, three times a day, just to come and feed my kids, I will pay you cash. Absolutely. There are moments now where my son or one of my daughters now are hungry. And they're eating. And they're actually chewing the food. It's not parked on the side of their mouth for half an hour. So I'm like, oh, he's hungry today. So what do? I shovel. And I shovel, and I give him as much food as I can, because I know that come tomorrow's going to be a slow food day. The heart's no different. The heart says, look, my mouth is open, right? I want to worship God. Give it as much as you can. Don't give it the bare minimum. But when it's closing, just do the wajibat. You get my point, inshallah. Okay? Because otherwise what ends up happening is that there is an immense amount of pressure we put that's unnecessary. We don't need to do that. Okay? So the first thing about change, becoming a better person, taking those lectures that we heard in the first 12 nights of the month of Muharram and actually, resulting in change, is the fact that God doesn't want massive changes. Take it slow. For example, if you've always wanted to wear hijab, you can't bring yourself to cover your hair. It's very difficult. Start by dressing modestly. Don't wear such tight clothing. Make sure that you're at least covered from here. Your hair might be out. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying let's go step by step, right? Right? Let's ease up on the makeup, for example. Let's make sure that my pants are one size bigger than usual, right? Let's make sure at least everything but the actual scarf I'm following. Let's make sure my behavior is modest. At work, I'm not hoo-hooing with guys. Right? I'm not free with those I shouldn't be free with. Right? Those kind of things. And then eventually you kind of go slowly, and then eventually, inshallah, you're able to kind of fulfill those wajibat. Somebody who wants to pray namaz al-shab, right? Waking up at 3:45, all 11 rak'ats, even the ulama say you can't do that. It's hard. So what do I do, Sayyid? How do I start namaz al-shab? Add 1 2 rakat unit after Isha. Add 1 2 rakat after Isha. Yes, ideally, namaz al-shab should kind of lead into and flow into the adhan of Fajr. Ideally, but let's get there slowly. It's like the example I gave in the first 10 minutes for those of you who heard me. A person comes to your door and saying, "Look, I'm from the local hospital. We're doing a 10K, a 10-kilometer run for our cancer group. Will you join us? It's in March, and it's kind of fun, and we'll give you a T-shirt and blah blah blah, and it'd be great." And you're like, "Yeah, sure, perfect. I'm down. Forget it. Yes, for sure." You can't walk from your living room to your kitchen without being out of breath, but you want to walk 10K, mashallah. You come out of the bathroom brushing your teeth and you're sweating because you haven't brushed your teeth, and you want to walk 10K, mashallah. Right? And your wife is like, you sign up for a 10K walk. It's a 10K walk, not a drive. Yeah, I know. What's the big deal? What's 10 kilometers? Right? And then you get there on the day of the walk, no training, nothing, and within 1 or 2K, you're throwing the white flag out, and you're holding your Achilles heel or your calf because you pulled the muscle, and your wife has to come and just drag you off the road. Okay, 1K one day, 2K next day, 5K, and then when it comes time for 10K walk, it'll be easy breezy. Right? Our journey towards Allah is no different. There's no rush, guys. Okay. Sometimes I find people who find tawfiq, who want to change, everything is boom. Stop doing this, stop doing that, we're going to stop eating. Oh, wait a second. Now, the Deen doesn't say all that. It doesn't say all that, because those kind of people turn other people off who are about to enter the Deen. Say, whoa. If this hermit cave life is what the Deen is, no, thank you. I can't go out to eat with my wife? No, that's not good. We don't know what kind of food that is. No, every halal out there is haram. Oh, wait a second. Who said that? No, everything is going to the mall, going to the park, stuff for Allah. Stay at home, that's it. The places at home, tasbih, whoa. Why? Where did that come from? I don't understand. Right? So these types of things are very, very dangerous. And when it comes time to change, I get it. It's very daunting. It's intimidating, because our image of God is that He'll never be pleased. And time again in various places, Ya Sariya Rida, I'm easily pleased, He's saying. I'm easily pleased. Take one step towards me, I'll take 10 towards you. Walk towards me, I'll run towards you. Praise me in private, I'll elevate you in public. What more do you want? So this element of change is a very real one. A lot of us aren't happy with ourselves. Physically, our bodies, our spirit, our mind, we could always do more. We don't know where to start. We actually, we preemptively tell ourselves, it's not gonna last, what's the point? I know. Like, we're so in tune with what we have to change. When someone else comes, like our spouse comes to us and says, "You know what? I think maybe you should start." I know. Don't tell me. I know. I don't want to hear. Don't say it. I know that I have to work on this in myself. Okay? I don't need you telling me this, right? That reaction they're not mad at you. They're mad at the fact that someone else now has realized their deep down secrets, that this is what my deficiency is. Right? Take that first step. Everything else will happen. That first step is the hardest. But after that, everything else comes into play. And God says, "Inna alladhina jahadu fina linahdiyannahum subulana." For the one who struggles in our path, Allah will open up doors for them. Open up doors for them. Right? You'll start to realize that God doesn't require a lot from you. One more hadith I want to mention. Imam Jafri Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. He says that in my youth, I used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a lot. To the point where even my father, the 5th Imam, would be concerned and would say that, you don't need to worship Allah that much. And I don't want anyone to please misunderstand me. I'm not saying to take days off of worship, nor am I saying for you to stop doing what you're doing just to see if I'm doing. There are people out there, I'll get to that in a moment. There are people out there, for example, who will stop wearing hijab for a week, 2 weeks, a month, just to see if I'm doing it for the right reasons. Right? And then after a week, 2 weeks, they feel weird, they feel awkward, they feel kind of like, like they don't feel like they're covered, so they put it back on. Say, okay, you know what? Perfect. I'm doing for the right reasons. Now it'll never come off. Thank God for those 2 weeks I left the house without hijab on. And they thought that what they're doing was worship, and it's wrong. That process isn't right. Right? You can't justify an immoral process for a moral end. The Deen doesn't work like that. Right? The Prophet of Allah, in the beginning of his of Islam in Mecca, he was struggling to to attract followers. I mean, he had the young, he had the poor, but they were still small in number, especially, of course, with the propaganda of Abu Sufyan. The story says that there's a large influential tribe that comes to the Holy Prophet, says, we will accept your Islam. All of us collectively will come towards the Deen, but we want to worship our idols every so often. Not all the time, but every so often. If you let us do that, you have our absolute loyalty. And we will recite the kalama. This entire influential money, weapons, power, numbers, all of it. And the Prophet said, no, sorry, no deal. You have to take the whole package. The process has to be, the means has to be pure, and the end has to be pure. Right? I'm not going to justify the means for the end. We can't sit there and say, okay, let me just stop kind of praying salat for a few days to see how, does it feel weird, does it not feel weird, to kind of resume, right? Well, it's not a trial and error process, right? We're not trying to figure out if I like spicy food or not, or if a certain medicine is causing my reaction. These are things that comes from God that we submit to. We can't play around with that kind of stuff. The obligation is the last one. Right? That's the cutoff. You can't go below that. It's those people that add on so many things to the point where it's difficult. Now back to the hadith. Now I didn't forget. Imam Sadiq says that I used to worship Allah so much. His father, the fifth Imam, says a beautiful statement that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes somebody his beloved, when he makes someone his beloved, he accepts very little from them. Not expects, accepts very little from them. Think about, the people you love very dearly in your life. Very dearly in your life. Think about your spouses. Think about your children, your siblings, your parents, a best friend of yours. Right? Think about if they do very, very small, bare minimum things to you, it'll be wonders. They go to the dollar store and buy you something, I don't know. Last time they were there, they saw you, trying to charge your phone, and you take it out, then you flip it, then you put it in, then you wiggle it, right? Because these chargers don't last very long, right? You're like, oh, come on, charge, right? And you're sitting there and you're holding it, then you're doing this, then you put it down. You're like, don't touch it, don't touch it, no one touch it. It's charging now. So the next day, your best friend comes over and buys you a $2.50 charger from the dollar store. Like, oh my God, that's so sweet. I love you. That's why you're my best friend. Small things. God's no different. God's no different. The small things. Okay. One last example, and then inshallah Messiah. It's already been almost 45 minutes. This example I've given before. Here in Toronto, we take our youth up camping every summer. It's an example I've given before. It's one that fits here as well. In fact, this is the first summer, I think, in almost 25 years that we haven't gone camping. Very sad. May Allah remove this virus from us, inshallah. And the highlight of the camp is the campfires at night, right? We have 4 of them, 5 days, 4 nights. Anyways, there's always a team of guys that are in charge of the fire. They then delegate to the other campers that if you guys can throughout the day, just pick up twigs whenever you can, okay, and put them by the campfire. And then they set up their fire pit, right? They have the large logs around. They have the small twigs inside, right? And the trick is that the fire from the small twigs will light the big logs on fire. You can't light the big logs directly. Not always. It's not always going to work, right? So the small twigs now, as they burn, the fire from that will ignite the big logs, right? Beautiful example for us as well. It's the small, everyday changes that actually ignite the big ones. And if you look at those people who are considered to be the elite in Allah, they always had small little things that they would do. Small things, guys. Small things. Example is that, I would leave the house saying Bismillah. In the morning when I do my brush routine, I take the extra 37 seconds and I do wudu, for example. Small examples. I wait, after every salat, I make sure I don't miss a single tasbih. You'll be surprised Right? People don't do tasbih after salat. Those kind of small things, that fire adds up, and then it begins to burn everything else. It begins to trigger everything else. My point tonight is, to all of you, is that it's been 10 days since Ashura. Compare yourself now to when you were, let's say, on the 8th of Muharram. It has to be a difference. First 10 days are first 10 days, right? You can't emulate those. But did we make promises to ourselves? Did we sit there and say, oh, did we trigger some thoughts that maybe weren't there? If so, where are those thoughts? Those thoughts are no good here to descend on this fluctuating heart. That heart then produces into action. And that's when change is ignited. But don't allow the barrier of an incorrect understanding of God's expectations to ruin that process of change. He wants to see the slightest bit of change. The slightest bit of change. And then you watch how doors will open. Because it was only 10 days ago that Imam Hussain sacrificed it all for this deen. Sometimes I wonder how bad things were. How much did the deen fall off of its pedestal, its elevated maqam and level, for Imam Hussain to think to himself that this requires a drastic sacrifice to be restored. The things he sacrificed, the people he sacrificed, are not easy. One is hard enough, let alone, how many he did from morning of the Adhan of Ali Akbar on the day of Ashura to Asr Ashur, when he himself sacrificed his own life. And that sacrifice would have been left on the plains of Karbala had it not been for Zainab. This is that Zainab who took this mission. This is that Zainab that many historians have said that she saw things that even Imam Hussain didn't see. And these are the days of Zainab. Of course, we have the wafat of Imam Sajjad coming up next week. But nonetheless, this now journey of Karbala continues towards Kufa and Sham. And all of us are fully aware of the history of the sheer injustice and the dhulm done to the Ahlul Bayt, especially the women and children inside Kufa and Sham. But that courage of Zainab, the resemblance that she would show of her father Ali, is incredible. It's almost as if the moment that Imam Hussain gave his life, a switch turned on with Bibi Zainab. That was already there. She now knew that my brother did his part. Now I must do my part. There's a portion in Janab Qasim's Masaib that we don't recite. At least I don't. When Qasim now fell from the horse, it says, Ya Amma Adarikni, oh uncle, please save me. Please help me. Imam Hussain, with such fierceness, went riding into the Maidan of Karbala. And he could see that the qatil and the enemy of Janab Qasim had his sword up, about to what? About to behead Qasim. Imam Hussain stopped him, attacked him. He could not handle for a moment that somebody would be beheaded. He would take the mayyat, as hard as it would be, from the Maidan of Karbala into a tent. And there was a tent where just the bodies of the Shuhada were there. You know how difficult it was Some reports say that how did Imam Hussain bring back Ali Akbar? Because he was adamant that I'm going to go alone to Ali Akbar when Ali Akbar called me. And when Ali Akbar now breathed his last, how did my Mullah take Ali Akbar back to the khayma? A 57-year-old father, a young man in his 20s. Some say that Imam Hussain now carried him in his arms like that. But some say that he went back to back with Ali Akbar, locking his arms, bending his back, and dragging Ali Akbar back to the khayma. But he never wanted any disrespect to the body. But the moment that Imam Hussain gave his life, Asr Ashur, Sham Ghariban hit. The first thing that Umar bin Saad did was he did two things in Sham Ghariban. Number one is he took every single one of the shaheed and he beheaded them one by one. Who's watching the head of Qasim be cut? The head of Abbas be cut? The head of Awna Muhammad be cut? The head of Hussain be cut? Is Zainab. Who's watching the trampling of the bodies on Sham Ghariban? Is Zainab. That moment now in Tamasaduha, that moment now Umar bin Saad says, I want 10 horses to come and change the hooves on their horses. 5 horses on one side of Hussein, 5 on the other. Umar bin Saad says, on my command, the ones to the right go to the left, the ones to the left go towards the right. The Khak of Karbala is in the air. Imam Hussein's body on the plains of Karbala. Wal mal'un Sheikh Abbas Kummi narrates. I always narrate this, it breaks my heart. He says, I was the last rider of the horse, and by Allah I swear that when my horse trampled the body of Hussein, I could hear and I could feel the cracking of his ribs. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this qaleel ibadat, inshaAllah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to please give us that tawfiq to understand the elements of change inside of us. We ask you, Allah, to weaken the hands of the enemies of humanity, to strengthen the oppressed and the mazloom and the mustaza'afin all of the world. And finally, Allah, one dua we have is for us to be the Ali Asghar, the Qasim, the Sakina, the Zainab of our Hussein, who's in Ghaybat right now. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Fatima Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Fatima Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, meri bibi, meri bibi, tere dar pe istighasa hai, tera mamnoon, meri shehzadi jahan sara hai. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, meri bibi, meri bibi, आंसुओं ने दुआ मांगी है, तेरी तस्बीह पढ़ के दिल में तुझे पुकारा है. या ज़हरा, या ज़हरा, या ज़हरा, या ज़हरा, फर्श मजलिस पे और मसल्ले पर हर जवां कह रहा है रो रो कर, हम रहे ना रहे मगर बीबी तो क़यामत रहे गमे सरवर. या ज़हरा, या ज़हरा, या ज़हरा, या ज़हरा, तू हमें हिफ्ज़ और अमान दे दे, اپنی چادر کا سائبہ دے دے، تیری قدرت میں کیا نہیں بی بی، تو جسے چاہے دو جہاں دے دے، یا زہرا یا زہرا یا زہرا یا زہرا